Mom, help me. My daughter, who should have been happily married, reached out to me one day, her voice shaking as she pleaded. When I asked what was wrong, she explained that her husband and his mother had jetted off on an overseas trip, leaving my daughter severely injured from an accident, alone and unattended. Enraged, I hurried to the hospital, where I was met with the sight of my daughter transformed beyond recognition. A week later, her husband called, cheerfully talking about the souvenirs they had purchased, to which I coldly replied, "We're in the middle of our daughter's funeral." "What?" He'll only be laughing for a little while longer. Now, it's time for revenge. I'm a 55-year-old full-time office worker at a company near my home. I became a widow at the age of 30 when my husband died from an illness. To be honest, I didn't have the luxury of grieving, as I was preoccupied with raising our 3-year-old daughter, Andrea, every single day. We weren't well off, but by the time she reached high school, she began working part-time and matured into a thoughtful, responsible young woman, often saying, "I can take care of my own expenses, Mom. Thanks for everything." After high school, as she didn't have any specific academic aspirations, she began working at a local firm where she met Stanley, her current husband. I remember it like it was just yesterday when she shyly said, "There's someone I want you to meet." I wondered what kind of person she was going to introduce, but Stanley turned out to be a genuine, good-hearted young man. Coincidentally, Stanley's mother, Tracy, was an old-school friend of mine. Although reserved, I had heard from Andrea that she was kind, which gave me a sense of relief. Though I hadn't seen Tracy since we graduated, we found common ground as single mothers and enjoyed a pleasant dinner together. I had remained single since my husband's passing, but Tracy seemed happy with her partner. A few months later, Andrea was married, radiating pure happiness. During the initial days of her married life, I would sometimes instinctively cook for her. As time passed, I found myself sighing often due to a certain concern. When asked by a colleague, I shared, "I try reaching out to Andrea, but her responses are late or brief. I guess this is part of her adjusting to married life. It feels lonely, though." At the beginning of her marriage, Andrea would regularly send me photos of her meals and ask about my health. However, her communication gradually decreased, which left me feeling a bit isolated. I hadn't seen her for nearly a year since she missed Thanksgiving and Christmas. Adding to my frustration, Tracy would contact me often, updating me about Andrea's seemingly happy life. She suggested, "Stanley, Andrea, and I went out to eat the other day. Next time, let's all go out together, including you, Sabrina." But the invitation never came. I felt a pang of loneliness and bitterness, but as a mature adult, I knew that my daughter's happiness was all that mattered. Some colleagues suggested I find a new man and remarry, but I don't think I could ever find someone I love as much as my late husband. Amid my plans to work diligently and save for retirement, my smartphone rang on a peaceful day off. Seeing my daughter's name on the screen, my heart leapt with joy. In stark contrast to my buoyant voice when I picked up, my daughter's trembling voice said, "Mom, help me." Something serious must have happened, and I was on the verge of tears. After hearing a brief explanation from my daughter, I immediately rushed to a certain location. As I rode in the taxi, I struggled to contain my anger. My daughter lay alone in her hospital bed, looking miserable. "What on earth happened to you, sweetie? Why are you in such a state?" She had been the victim of a hit and run. Her arm and leg were both broken, and she had also hit her head. Her leg was particularly concerning, and it was uncertain if she would ever walk again. After a long absence, my daughter was unrecognizable. Her hair and skin were dull, and she was alarmingly thin. The sight of her broke my heart. Was what you told me over the phone true? At my words, my daughter quietly nodded her head. Unbelievable! He left his wife in this state and went on a trip abroad with his mother? Unlike her hot-headed mother, my daughter started to speak calmly. On the day of the accident, she and her husband were supposed to be leaving for a honeymoon in Hawaii. Backed by the support of their colleagues, they were going to go on a slightly delayed honeymoon. But when she had the accident that day, she thought the trip would obviously be called off. However, Stanley had said something shocking. It's unfortunate, but the cancellation fees for the flight and hotel would be a waste. So I'll just go and enjoy myself. She was shocked at his words. Are you seriously going to our honeymoon alone? At her words, he said, I didn't mention this, but my mother is joining the trip. We've booked the same flight and hotel and plan to surprise you there. My daughter was appalled. You're taking your mother on our honeymoon? She then asked me. I mean, how crazy is that? I'm glad I didn't go on such a trip. At my daughter's indignant words, her husband snorted in laughter. Well, I'll at least buy you a souvenir. Don't tell anyone at work about the accident. They'll think I'm a terrible person. Let's say the accident happened the day we returned from Hawaii. You should let your mother know. Oh, I guess there's no need to worry about that. He left the room laughing loudly, and she lost all contact with him afterwards. When I asked, why couldn't you rely on me? She said, they made me believe you were always troubled by me. I'm sorry for reaching out to you today. I couldn't understand what she meant. After learning about the state of her married life, I found myself in tears in her hospital room. Ah, those jerks! How dare they treat my daughter this way? I will never forgive them. On this day, I swore revenge. Several days later, my son-in-law rang on my daughter's phone. Hello? Hawaii is amazing, Andrea. I don't want to come back. It's a shame you couldn't join. I got you a souvenir, so forgive me. He laughingly said on the other end of the line. Can you keep it down? I'm her mother. Must be nice, huh? To be on a vacation while she was suffering. Is this Andrea's mother? He sounded taken aback that I had answered my daughter's phone. I took a deep breath and said, she's passed away. We're in the middle of her funeral now. What? Upon hearing his seemingly pleased voice, I hung up the phone. The following day, my son-in-law, looking visibly uncomfortable, and his mother, Tracy, paid a visit to my home. I invited them in with a piercing glare. Photographs of my late husband and daughter adorned the altar. Stanley collapsed into tears at the sight of the picture. I'm sorry. I didn't think things would end up like this. She told me it was okay to go. I was furious at his blatant lie that he had gone to Hawaii because my daughter had told him to. In sync with him, Tracy said, Yes, why didn't you tell us such an important thing? I didn't get any contact either. To which I coldly retorted, But you went to Hawaii with them, didn't you? There's no point in reaching out to you. Are you stupid or something? Stanley, my daughter has shared everything with me. She must have felt so abandoned. Poor thing. After the hit and run, her so-called dependable husband went off on a ludicrous trip with his mother. Reacting to my words, he tutted and uttered something outrageous. I'm sorry about that. I'm swamped with work and can't really grieve for Andrea. Would you mind looking after her grave from now on?" His absurd demand caught me off guard. "I'd like to ask you the same. Wouldn't you feel better if you took care of her grave?" Tracy chimed in. As if to say that this was the end of our relationship, the two of them started to get ready to leave. So I said, "Oh, I see. So that's how it is, huh?" "Well, she left a lot for me. She was a bit naive and left me as the beneficiary of her life insurance." Upon hearing my words, their faces went pale. "What? Don't joke around. I'm her husband. The money should be mine," he yelled in a coarse, revolting tone. Tracy was also indignant. "That's rather presumptuous of you, isn't it? Andrea was part of our family. It's rather selfish for you to claim the money just because you're her mother." "Uh-huh, so that's your true colors. You were always scaring my daughter like that, weren't you?" Poor girl. "Stanley, you were with her at the office, controlling her every move. She must have been petrified." I had heard everything from my daughter. "Everything was good after we got married. But as time passed, his controlling nature intensified. At home, he was always watching when I used my smartphone, and during work hours, he would take it away from me. She had told me that the messages I had sent were often deleted before she could read them. When I asked him what was written, he told me, "It says, 'Don't come home for Thanksgiving or Christmas. She pretty much hates you.'" Initially, she didn't believe it, but as I refrained from contacting her respecting her married life, she started thinking, maybe I regretted my actions deeply when I heard that. If I had known that, I would have visited her without hesitation. To add insult to injury, her mother-in-law Tracy, who lives nearby, would come to her house almost every day and complain about how poorly she did housework. She would say things like, "Your mother, she was a terrible woman who changed men like clothes when she was a student. Your father doesn't even know whose child you are. Tracy, you frequently reached out to me. Were all those communications nothing but lies? I've heard that you and Stanley physically abused my daughter. Is that true?" Stanley swore heavily, saying, Shut up already, you old hag. It's Andrea's fault for not listening to what my mom says. You're making it sound like I was violent towards her. All I did was make her listen, okay? Just hand over the money already. Your daughter was boring even after she got married. It was a mistake." As he laughed and admitted to his extreme control and violence, I stared at him and said, "I can't give you the money because, in fact, she's still alive. I've moved her to another hospital. I'm not gonna tell you where, though. I wanted to see how you would react if I told you she was gone, but it was more disgusting than I thought." Furious at my words, Stanley said, "What the? Have you lost your mind? Poor girl, she has a mad woman for a mother." Next to him, Tracy was chuckling, but I didn't care. As they left the house laughing uproariously, I told them, "Your bad deeds will always come back to you. I'm curious about how your lives will turn out." As I chuckled, they gave me a strange look and said, "Creepy. Are you sure you're not crazy?" The door was shut with a bang, but I continued to watch their retreating figures, laughing. The next day, the two of them came to my house again, looking frantic. "Hey, lady, it was you, wasn't it? It's about time you stopped getting ahead of yourself, being a woman and all." "Huh? I'm not getting ahead of myself. I just talked to the company about taking some time off because my daughter had an accident and the doctor said she needed long-term hospitalization. I think that's the role of a spouse, but since the spouse was off to Hawaii with his mom, I had to do it. Irritated by my tone, Stanley grabbed my collar and raised his hand. Go ahead, hit me if you want to. I told you yesterday, didn't I? All your evil deeds will one day come back at you. My daughter isn't as naive as you think. It seems she noticed everything. She even knows who you really went to Hawaii with. At my words, Stanley's face went pale. Mom, Stanley has been having an affair with a younger coworker. The reason he wanted to go to Hawaii was probably for that junior. Despite her preference for nearby destinations, Stanley was insistent about Hawaii. This junior was equally eager to travel to Hawaii. My daughter, suspecting their relationship, decided to play along when Stanley planned to travel alone on the day of the accident, but she nearly burst into laughter at his desperate lie about traveling with his mother. The disgusting part was realizing that wasn't a lie and that there was an additional person joining them. I assumed they were going to Hawaii to ditch me and have their secret rendezvous. I had planned to take a lot of evidence photos, but then I had the accident. My daughter seemed to have thought things through. I headed straight to her company. Her boss was very surprised. The mother of his subordinate suddenly showed up, told him about the accident out of the blue, and then accused 2 employees of an inappropriate relationship. The photos my daughter shared included several of Stanley and his affair partner appearing rather intimate in the office. There were even photos of them clinging closely, which did not resemble a simple senior-junior relationship. He did that despite not knowing who was watching. He was such a fool. Isn't this woman on vacation at the moment? To which the boss replied, her father in the countryside suddenly passed away. However, the date coincided with Stanley's departure for Hawaii. The boss, initially in disbelief, said, let me just check something real quick, and came back after a while. When he contacted the female employee's family home, her father answered. He looked very angry. I understand that this is not something a mother should meddle in. However, my daughter is hospitalized for a long time and cannot move. I'm taking the liberty to request that you severely reprimand these 2. I pleaded, and the boss sided with me. I asked him to wait to reach out to them until their next shift, fearing they might run away. Stanley and his affair partner, blissfully ignorant, were looked at with contempt by their colleagues who knew everything as soon as they came to work, and they were told to stay home. The woman who tagged along on a trip with the mother was probably quite crazy as well. Of course, I wouldn't let it end there. This man, who disrespects women, needed to understand the inhumanity of his actions. It seems my daughter had gotten a medical certificate when she was subjected to violence. I wonder if I could file a complaint on her behalf. As I was thinking about this, a police officer came to visit my daughter's hospital room. I want to ask you in detail about the day of the accident. The truth of the accident was appalling. After some time, my daughter's divorce was finalized. Stanley and his affair partner were fired from the company. This was because it was found out that my daughter's accident was planned by Stanley and Tracy. When I was shown the footage from a security camera near the scene, it was so horrifying I almost covered my eyes, but I recognized the car involved in the hit and run. It belonged to Tracy's boyfriend, whom I had seen with her several times. When the police visited her boyfriend's house, he confessed easily. Well, Stanley said he found someone else he likes, right? I just wanted to support him as a mother. What's wrong with that? She responded to my disbelief. As for Stanley himself, he said, I thought a divorce would look bad, so I thought if I could cause her some harm, I could send her back to her mother. I thought I'd be lucky if she even died, because I get the money." He expressed absolutely no remorse, even making light of the situation. Apparently, they planned to get married on the day of the trip, and they had never intended to bring my daughter along. Those two deserve to go to hell. The affair partner was not involved in the accident and therefore was not held criminally accountable, but I made sure to demand damages. She was apparently a new graduate, and she told my lawyer, "I just graduated. I can't afford such an amount. Please tell Stanley to lower it." But being a new graduate has nothing to do with destroying someone else's family. In the end, she borrowed money from her parents, and she seems to be very uncomfortable because the rumor has spread in her hometown. Ha! Well deserved. Even if those two are released from prison, they will never be able to live a peaceful life. They should live in regret for the rest of their lives. It's a case of reaping what they sowed. As for us, my daughter Andrea has worked hard on her rehabilitation since then, and thankfully, her legs have recovered enough that she can walk normally again. She resigned from her previous company and started working at the same company as me due to my recommendation. I had told my coworkers about my daughter, and everyone welcomed her warmly. Several years later, a surprising person came to visit our home. "Long time no see, Sabrina. I'm not the person I used to be. I will make your daughter happy this time," said Stanley, the audacious ex-son-in-law, proposing to get back together with my daughter. "On what basis did you dare show up here? You love the police that much, huh?" As I pretended to take out my phone, a muscular man carrying a toddler who calls me mother emerged from the house, causing Stanley to widen his eyes in surprise. Andrea is happily married now, with a wonderful husband and a lovely child. There's no room for you in her life. She smiles happily every day since she left you. Have you ever seen her smile like that? Of course not. Now leave, I said, and her current husband, Keith, stepped forward. Stanley whimpered a little and hurried away. "Mom, you always help me out," my daughter says, but that's not true. If it weren't for my little girl who told me everything would be all right the day her father passed away, I wouldn't have been able to keep going. The one being helped, then and now, is me. I wonder if I've been able to be of any help to her. Seeing my family smile happily, that's my greatest happiness.
My Mill, supposedly hospitalized, came to visit. Upon calling husband, he lied blatantly. I ended up moving with help of in-laws.
Huh? Weren't you supposed to be in the hospital? No, I just threw my back out. What? I immediately called my husband. Where are you right now? He replied,
"In my mom's hospital room. I'm in the middle of getting an explanation, so please, don't call me."
And he hung up right away. At that moment, I knew he was lying. Shall we leave this house then? My mother-in-law asked, and I strongly nodded in agreement. My name is Kim, a 29-year-old full-time housewife. My husband Nathan and I have been married for a year. As newlyweds, we have been enjoying every day living happily. The weather is really nice today.
You're right. Shall we go for a drive?
Great idea! Let's go. We are quite spontaneous, often going out on the spur of the moment. On this particular day, we drove far to a tourist spot and even ended up booking a hotel on the spot and staying overnight. Nathan and I met through work. I was a magazine editor and he was a salaryman working for a large company. I met him when I was covering his company. I don't want to sound conceited or anything, but apparently he fell in love at first sight when we first met. After working together for several weeks, he asked for my phone number when we said our final goodbyes. From there, we started going out on dates, gradually closing the distance between us. Then he confessed his feelings, and our relationship began. After about a year of dating, he proposed and we decided to get married. I was attracted to his very gentlemanly and devoted personality. He always treated me with great care. I think he was nicer than anyone I've ever dated. So I was happy when we decided to get married. I was convinced that we would definitely have a happy married life. After that, we met each other's parents. My parents also seemed to quickly take a liking to him, and his parents were very fond of me. We're delighted to have such a lovely woman as you for a daughter-in-law.
Are you sure you're okay with Nathan? Hey, what's that supposed to mean, Dad?
He seemed to get along well with his parents and enjoyed their conversation. His parents' house was in the countryside, and he had moved to the city for university. So his parents seemed very happy when he came home. Our family's meeting went smoothly, and we got married. At the wedding, we were very happy to receive blessings from many people. Then began our married life. Even after a year, I still felt happy and thought marrying him was the right choice. He has said he wanted me to become a housewife after we got married, so I retired upon our marriage and became a full-time housewife. He works for a large company, so we can live comfortably even if I'm a housewife. Having worked very hard before, I personally found the time spent as a housewife to be like the rest. I always liked housework and had thought I would want to make elaborate dishes if I had the time. Now I feel very happy cooking delicious food and serving it to Nathan.
This hamburger is super tasty. The cheese inside is the best. The demi-glace sauce is so delicious. How do you make it?
He happily says these things while stuffing his mouth. I feel very happy just seeing him eat and enjoy the food. I thought I would continue to do what I can in housework and support my husband by cooking delicious food. But recently, he has become quite busy at work.
Sorry, I don't need dinner today.
Oh, okay. I feel a little lonely reading the message from my husband at work. He seems to be overwhelmed by work now, working late every day. So he seems to be making do with eating something like Chinese food or pizza at the office.
Everyone in the team is working hard together, so I can't be the only one to leave.
That makes sense. He was always working hard like that, due to the responsibility he had as a section manager. So even when I felt lonely, I couldn't complain to him. Plus, I also thought that my husband, who worked so hard at his job, was attractive. So during the weekends, I was cooking elaborate, nutritious, and delicious meals for him. Because of his overtime fatigue during the weekdays, he spent most of his weekends at home, relaxing. He no longer stayed as active as he used to, but I was happy that we could spend time together. However, after continuing this lifestyle for about 2-3 months, his attitude started to change.
I'm home.
Welcome back. You're late. I thought you'd be back as usual since I didn't get any message.
Huh? Oh, sorry. I thought I had messaged you.
Back then, whether his busy period was over or not, my husband was basically coming home around 8 p.m. without doing any overtime. But recently, he has been coming home around midnight more often. Are you doing more overtime again?
Yeah, it's a bit busy again.
I felt a slight discomfort in his response at that time. It was as if he was hiding something. Even so, wanting to believe him, I didn't question him further. After all, he might really be busy with work, and I didn't want him to think that I was a nagging wife. However, my husband came home late again without any notice. Hey, you didn't send me any messages tonight again. The dinner I made is going to be a waste if you don't let me know.
Oh, sorry. Then I'll eat it for lunch at the office tomorrow.
No, I made curry tonight.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
With that, he went to take a bath. I felt something was off then as well. He took his smartphone with him to the bathroom. It's something he never did before. He often used to leave it on the living room table. Moreover, while he claimed he was doing overtime, he didn't seem to be particularly tired. Rather, he seemed to be in a good mood. What on earth was going on? And spent my days feeling uneasy, wondering about this. Even on holidays, he was saying that he had work and leaving the house. Was he really working? I was filled with feelings of loneliness and suspicion towards my husband, and every day was depressing. Being alone at home, my thoughts would increasingly veer towards the negative. So, I decided to work part-time. When I talked to him about it, he said it was completely fine. It would have been nice if he had agreed to me working part-time from the time we got married, but since he said it was okay for me to work, I decided to be happy with it. So I started working outside the house for the first time in a long time. I took up a part-time office job in a small to medium-sized company. Interacting with people other than my husband after a long time was good for my mental health, and even though I was feeling a little uneasy about him, I didn't have to worry too much. For a while after that, I was able to spend my days without any particular problems. My husband was still often late returning home and seemed busy with work on weekends, but thanks to my part-time job, I wasn't so dependent on him anymore. Having my own job really is a good thing. Then one day, something happened that made me worry. It was when I was at home. Suddenly, I received a call from Nathan. I answered the phone thinking how weird for him to call me like this. Hello, what's up?
Hey, Kim. It seems that my mom was taken to the hospital in an ambulance.
What? Is she alright?
Well, she's conscious, so she seems okay for now. I'm worried, so I'm going to go see her and stay in the hospital tonight.
Alright, I'll be there right away too.
No, it's okay.
Huh? Why?
You have your part-time job tomorrow, right?
But this is a serious situation for your mother, so I'll call in for a day off.
No, you don't have to do that. It would be a bother to your workplace. I'll go first, and once things settle down, you can visit her. Besides, she might not need to stay in the hospital for long.
Okay. Although I wasn't convinced, I decided to listen to him for the time being. But the next day, something unexpected happened. After I finished my part-time job and returned home, the intercom rang. To my surprise, it was my mother-in-law standing there. I opened the door surprised. Weren't you supposed to be in the hospital? Hospital? Yes, because Nathan told me that you were taken to the hospital in an ambulance and need to be hospitalized. No, I just threw my back out. What? Your back? Yes, embarrassingly, it happened all of a sudden. But that was about a month ago. Oh, is that so? But Nathan said, Huh? What do you mean? She looked confused. I was on a trip with a friend yesterday and I thought I'd come to give you a souvenir. I was planning to go back home tonight. It seemed that she had just happened to visit our house. Kim, did Nathan call you saying that I was taken to the hospital in an ambulance yesterday and needed to be hospitalized? Yes. He insisted he would go straight to your hospital from work and told me to prioritize my part-time job and visit you later. This seems strange. Let's give him a call. Okay. I immediately called my husband, putting the call on speaker so she could also hear. Where are you now? I asked my husband. He responded,
I'm in Mom's hospital room. They're explaining her condition, so please don't call me.
And abruptly hung up. I knew then that he was lying. My mother-in-law looked surprised. What kind of explanation? She murmured, then called my husband.
Hello, Mom. What's up?
He answered the phone as if nothing was out of the ordinary. Where are you?
Where? I'm at the office.
Are you really at the office?
Yeah, what's going on? Why are you asking me that?
He seemed confused by her questioning. There's a lot of noise and voices in the background.
Oh, that. Yes, well, there's a parade passing by outside the office. It's quite noisy.
I see. I'm actually currently in New York. I was thinking I could drop by your office for a visit.
What? That's a bit inconvenient.
Why? I need to meet and thank your superiors and colleagues.
It's unusual for a parent to suddenly show up at work.
Well then, can I see you after work? I came all the way to New York, so I'd like to see your face before I go home.
Oh, well, I'm a bit busy today. I'll probably have to work overtime until around 11 p.m.
I prompted my mother-in-law with a note on my phone suggesting she say, I'll stay at your house and wait with Kim. She nodded and told him, Well then, I'll stay at your place and wait with Kim. You're off work tomorrow, right? It's the weekend. His confusion escalated even further.
What? That's a bit...
Why not?
Ugh.
He stumbled over his words, clearly distressed. Then he began to make surprising remarks.
Actually, Kim is not comfortable with you, Mom.
What? I gasped in my heart at his words. My mother-in-law and I exchanged surprised looks. I shook my head, insisting that it wasn't true, and she seemed to understand. We both realized that Nathan was hiding something and was up to no good. Understood. Sorry for being selfish. I'll quietly go back home.
I'm sorry, Mom. I'll make it up to you next time.
No need for that, she said before hanging up the call. Both she and I were in a state of shock for a while. Then, with a determined look, she said, I'm sorry for my stupid son, Kim. You can leave him. Continuing this marriage will only bring you misery. It was clear my husband was having an affair. It's Friday today. He is probably going on a weekend affair trip. Yes, I'll leave him. Shall we leave this house then? She asked, and I nodded strongly. I'm grateful that she was on my side. My husband had betrayed me, lied to his mother, and even fabricated the horrible lie that she was hospitalized. Worse, he claimed that I didn't like my mother-in-law. She quickly informed her husband about the situation. He was outraged when he heard the story and drove over the next day.
I'm really sorry for my stupid son.
No, it's not your fault. With the help of my in-laws, I moved my belongings back to my parents' house. We're very sorry for our stupid son. No, thank you for helping her move. Thanks to my in-laws, I was able to move all my belongings back to my parents' house. From now on, I guess it's all about gathering evidence. Yes, that's right. I have a little plan. As we took a break in the living room, my mother-in-law suggested a strategy. We all agreed to go ahead with this plan. About 3 days after I moved back to my parents' house, Nathan contacted me.
Oh, are you not home?
I replied to my oblivious husband. Actually, my dad has just thrown his back out. I need to help out with chores around the house, so it seems I'll be spending some time at my parents' house. Is that okay? When I sent this message, his response was,
All right. Tell your dad to take care.
The ease with which he agreed hinted that he was indeed having an affair and likely planning to meet his mistress while I was away. I immediately requested an investigator to gather evidence, and because of his carelessness, it took only about a week to collect everything. With the evidence at hand, I returned home. My in-laws agreed to be present, and we waited for Nathan to return from work in the house we had shared. He was surprised to find both me and his parents there.
What's going on? Kim, Mom, Dad, why are you all here together?
He stuttered, clearly unsettled. We have something to discuss. Sit. I told him in a cold tone. Nervously, he sat across from me. You know what this is about, don't you?
What are you talking about?
He tried to play innocent, but I sighed. You lied about your mom being hospitalized. I know about the affair.
Oh.
He froze at my blunt words. "These are the photos proving your affair," I revealed, spreading the investigator's photos across the table. His face turned pale at the sight. "You're despicable, lying about your parents' misfortune, deceiving and betraying me? And to make up such a nasty lie that I dislike your mother?"
But how did you...
"When your mom called you, I was listening right next to her.
What?
And just as I thought you were having an affair. I'm disgusted. I can't continue this marriage with you. We're done." Panicked, he blurted out.
Wait, let's reconsider this divorce.
But his parents would not stand for it.
Enough is enough. Accept the consequences for your actions.
"It's unbelievable that you would exploit me and hurt Kim. Regardless of what you have to say, accept Kim's request for divorce and pay the consolation money as a sign of your remorse." As his parents roared, my husband cowered, completely intimidated. And with that, he agreed to divorce as instructed. I truly appreciate the support of my in-laws throughout this ordeal. Afterwards, I was able to divorce and demand consolation money from my ex-husband and his mistress. It turned out that my ex had been having an affair with the daughter of his company's executive director. Furthermore, his mistress was engaged, and her fiancé also demanded consolation money from my ex. It seems that her fiancé was the son of a president of a crucial business partner of the company, and this affair scandal almost led to the dissolution of their business relationship. As a result, my ex was fired from his job as a form of taking responsibility. However, my in-laws had severed all ties with him due to their disgust, leaving him unemployed and burdened with a debt in the form of consolation money. He's now working as a part-timer, with most of his income going towards debt repayment, leading a life of poverty. He entirely brought this upon himself, and honestly, it serves him right. On the other hand, I was offered full-time employment at the company where I had been working part-time. The people I work with are all wonderful, and I'm delighted to have become a full-time employee in such an enjoyable workplace. Just like old times, I plan to devote myself to my work, contribute to the company, and move forward in my new life.
After I gave birth to twins, my mother-in-law drove me further into a corner after I became a wreck by child raising.
"I don't want a daughter-in-law who can't even do her chores." Saying this, she came up to me and took away the ring I was wearing. "You're too tired to do the housework, aren't you? You don't even need to dress up. I'll use it for you." I didn't know why she would go to such lengths. But because she took the ring, my mother-in-law opened the door to hell herself. My name is Lori. I am 28 years old. I was born when my parents were old, so they raised me with a lot of love. But my mother passed away at the young age of 60. My father, not wanting to cause me any trouble or worry, put our house in order and moved to an assisted living facility before he turned 70. Since he lives there, I visit him regularly, but only when he is well because I don't want to worry him. I met my husband Ray at a meetup group. I was immediately attracted to Ray, who not only had a wealth of knowledge but also amazing skills. And despite not being taken seriously because I was younger than him, I tried my best, and we ended up getting married. After we were married, things were going well and we lived happily, sharing the same roles. One day, I went for a checkup, and to my delight, I found out that I was having twins. "They said I have twins," I told Ray excitedly.
What? Really? We don't even have any relatives with twins.
When we found out I was pregnant, we were asked if any of our blood relatives had twins. What a great thing! So being the science types that we are, we both did some research on the certainty, and at first we both had plenty of time to spare and had fun. Ray works for my father-in-law's company, and now that we are going to have twins, he has started his succession process as well. However, while I was fine in the beginning, in the second trimester, the morning sickness got so bad that I couldn't eat, and my health deteriorated. Ray cared for me, and if I told him I couldn't eat because of the smell, he would not bring that food in the house. Ray was kind and caring, but the problem was my mother-in-law. Morning sickness is not a disease, okay? I can understand that, you know. I had relatively bad morning sickness myself. That's why it's so adorable when they grow up after birth. I see. I've been sick all morning today, and honestly, I just want to lie down and close my eyes. That's what I was thinking. Oh my God, are you listening to me? So that's what I'm worried about, whether Ray is eating properly. Yes, my mother-in-law was visiting me not because she was concerned about her daughter-in-law's health. She was coming to bring various foods, saying that she had brought my husband's favorite foods after blaming me for being lazy and skipping housework despite my condition. I did my best to give birth to him, but he chose such a dull girl to marry, and it would have been better if she still had the ability to do housework, but she's really useless to skip even that. I'm sorry. I was suitably amused as I wanted her to end the conversation and leave already. But I'm not always free either. It's not easy for me to come here like this. Yes. I wanted her to leave as soon as possible since no one had asked her to do so in the first place, but I kept my words to myself. I'm worried about you, especially after the baby is born, so I'll come to stay and take care of you. Yes. What? I replied without thinking, but to my surprise, she said she would live here for a while after the birth and help me. No, you don't have to. We'll be fine, and you have Dad to take care of anyways. I immediately expressed my refusal, but my mother-in-law did not get the message. I have my husband's permission. Besides, you don't have a mother anymore. I have no choice but to help you. Or were you thinking of wasting your money on private services? No, but by ourselves as a couple. Even if you have this morning sickness? Well, that's okay. I don't need your permission. But if you can do everything properly while taking care of the twins and not disturbing Ray, who is the successor, then go take advantage of Ray again and refuse. But if your housework and childcare suck as a result, I'll ask you to leave the kids and go away. So think carefully about what you are going to do in the future. Then she smiled wryly and left. When Ray came home, he opened the refrigerator and checked what my mother-in-law had left behind.
Oh, Mother was here today. I'm sorry. Your belly is so big and you're about to give birth, so it must be hard.
Yeah. Well, she seemed to be concerned about you.
I'm not a child anymore, so she should just leave us alone. And besides, you can't eat even half of this right now.
Oh, it's okay. It's a waste. Don't worry about it. Just eat it. I'll go take a bath.
I told my mom about the smell, but I guess she's getting too old for that. I don't think she's listening to me. I'll eat in a hurry. I'm really sorry.
When I got out of the bath, he had even washed the dishes properly. He had also opened all the windows in the living room and turned on the exhaust fan at its maximum setting.
I'm going to take a bath too.
I was really happy that he was so kind to take care of me. And my mother-in-law's words kept going around and around in my head. Ray cares for me so much. There was no way Ray would just take the children away from me and kick me out. I knew that, and I didn't want to rely on my mother-in-law, but even now I could easily imagine Ray, who cared for me so much, pushing himself too hard at work and in his private life, and it was distressing. Ray then received a phone call from my mother-in-law, who duly confirmed my intention.
Have you heard about the postpartum? You're a very caring person, and I don't think you'd be able to take a break if she were here. I'm here too, and we can hire someone, okay?
But you and your mother will continue to have a parent-child relationship, and I'm sure you've heard that taking care of twins is harder than you can imagine. So I think it would be nice if she could take care of the house for me.
I don't know. Well, but my mom's not that good at housework, you know. I'll ask her to do it for now, but if you need anything, just let me know.
For some reason, my husband seemed more concerned about my relationship with my mother-in-law than I was. After that, I gave birth safely and I made reasonable progress while I was recovering at the hospital. However, after returning home, the speed of recovery was slow, perhaps because there was no time to rest. Raising twins was many times harder than I had imagined. When one of them would stop crying, the other would cry. Sleep was also difficult because it was impossible to breastfeed them exclusively, so we also introduced baby formula, but they didn't take it well. I tried my best to establish a rhythm, and it was good if I could sleep for 2 hours at a time, but really, I would sleep for about 30 minutes several times a day, and it was more like a nap than a full night's sleep. That was as it should have been. In fact, before the birth, my father-in-law fell ill. Ray had to take over for him at a moment's notice, which meant he had to spend more and more time away from home.
Are you okay? I'll go get changed, okay?
Ray got woken up in the middle of the night by my crying and called out to me to see how I was doing. However, Ray's face looked so tired due to having to take on work he was unfamiliar with, so I tried not to depend on him as much as possible.
It was your turn to make dinner again today, wasn't it? You're a better cook than me, though. Mom's just tastes like there's too much salt. I mean, isn't Mom doing the housework for us? She says she's busy helping you, but she doesn't seem to visit Dad much.
What? I thought Mom visits him a lot.
Really? Then maybe I asked at the wrong time?
Sure, she comes every day, but only to bring me leftover food or to be in the living room with the twins. Besides, she was regularly out of the house because of my father-in-law. I thought it was just bad timing that I was told about it, and it shouldn't be so often that my mother-in-law didn't come to visit. But I didn't have time to worry about my mother-in-law, and I never mentioned this to Ray. To begin with, when I said she was in the living room with the twins, she was just watching TV or on her phone. When I asked her to hold them for me, "Hold them? I can't. They're so heavy. I'll hurt my back." She said that, and that was it. "Well, can I change the other diapers so you can carry the crying one?" "Huh? I don't like it. It stinks, and I don't want the smell on my hands." "It's your first grandchild, so you should love them." I didn't say that, but I don't want to change the diaper for anyone but my own child either. It's just that she sits there doing nothing but watching TV and being on her phone, and I have not been able to sit down, even once, since this morning. "What are you having for lunch today? I want pasta." She said things like that. And not only did she not help me clean the house, but she complained. "You know what? The area around the TV is very dusty." "What?" "Yes, I know it is." "You do? It's so dirty I was afraid you were too stupid to know and your eyes were as bad as an old man's." I don't get a decent night's sleep and I don't have time to watch TV. With Ray hardly ever around, it is my mother-in-law, who doesn't even live here, who is in front of the TV all the time. If it bothered her so much, she would have thought that she should have cleaned the house. But she only complained and never helped me with the housework or childcare. I couldn't help but wonder, from my point of view, why she had come up with the idea of coming here to help out. Then one day, I had a bad feeling about my mother-in-law, who was clearly unhappy from the moment she arrived. "Hey, you know what? I always wondered, are you cleaning the front door? It's the place that people sees the most. I just don't get the feeling that you have any interest in keeping your house clean." "Cleaning it? I'm sorry, I haven't really slept the last few nights." I complained about my poor health and lack of sleep, but she wouldn't listen to me. "What? Are you trying to slack off again like that?" "No, I'm really having a hard time already." "All mothers are like that, you know. You're not the only one. You're always being spoiled. I'm going to give you a little workout today." "Workout?" "Yes, you always cook just whatever kind of food, don't you? Today I'll show you how to make Ray's favorite boiled fish." Boiled fish? It wasn't that I couldn't cook it. I knew it was Ray's favorite food, so before I got pregnant, I used to make it a lot. "Oh, you're thinking I can make it, right? I'm saying I'll give you the taste of my home cooking, the taste Ray loves." No matter how much Ray liked it, I felt like she was taking it out on me when she chose the more labor-intensive version, even though there were many others to choose from. I knew that if I complained about anything, I would just get loudly returned and abused. And since the twins were sleeping unusually well, I honestly didn't want to wake them up by making any more noise by my mother-in-law, even though I too wanted to sleep.
Okay, we're going to make it just like this, okay?
Like this?
That's right, make it quickly.
Then, when I was relieved that it was finally done, I felt my fatigue reach its peak, and I thought my eyes were blurry and I almost fell over. It was just dizziness, so I managed to hold on, but my hand seemed to have hit the pot, causing it to fly through the air and spill out its contents. The children, startled by the loud noise, woke up and cried loudly. At the same time, my mother-in-law shouted angrily,
"What are you doing? I missed the best part of the drama because of the noise."
Peering into the kitchen, my mother-in-law shouted even louder,
"What is this? Did you just drop everything?"
I wanted to get to the crying twins in the living room, so I apologized to my mother-in-law, put the food back in the pot, and slipped aside. Fortunately, the twins were only startled by the noise and calmed down a bit when I turned on their toys. However, my mother-in-law, on the contrary, seemed to have lost her excitement.
"I don't want a daughter-in-law who can't even do her chores."
"Please, don't scream so loud. You'll make them cry again."
What? What? You're just incompetent and you're rebelling against me? You are totally cocky.
Saying that, she came up to me and took away the ring I was wearing.
You're so tired you can't even do your chores. You don't even need to dress up, so you don't need this, do you? I've always been curious about this ring because of its interesting design. I'll use it for you.
I couldn't understand why she would go to such lengths. "Please, give me that back. It's a gift. If I take it off, I'll be in big trouble," I pleaded.
Ray gave it to you? Then you should apologize for losing it. You have to take it off in front of Ray.
I thought I should just leave her to her own devices, but when she realized I wasn't going to say anything more...
Right. If you honestly reflect on what you did, I'll pay you back someday. You are incompetent, so at least take what you are told seriously. If you don't do what you're told seriously and properly, I'll take my grandchildren away from you this time, not just your ring.
At that moment, my mother-in-law's cell phone rang, and after checking the message, she said,
"You got it, right? I'm going to go visit my husband, and you're going to make sure everything is cleaned up."
After packing up her belongings, my mother-in-law left. A few days later, my mother-in-law came to visit me again. She seemed to think it was just me and was surprised that Ray was there.
"Oh, Ray is here?"
"Yes. I was waiting for you because I have something to say to you, Mother."
"Oh, what is it?" "Oh, I'm fine if you're wondering about my condition. You're so kind, Ray. I'm just trying to be supportive as long as you don't push yourself too hard."
I wondered which one of us was going to say it, but Ray was more upset than I was, so I couldn't interrupt him.
"No, I'm not worried about you at all, and that's not what I'm going to talk about."
My mother-in-law seemed a little confused by the angry attitude of the usually gentle Ray.
"Really? It's just, it's a mother-in-law's duty to take care of her daughter-in-law, isn't it? Like the other day..."
"She's not your daughter-in-law anymore."
"What?"
"I don't want you to have anything to do with Lori, because she's not your daughter-in-law anymore."
"Oh, you're divorcing her? That's a good choice. She's too useless for anything."
"Yeah, that's right. There will be a divorce."
"I see. So what about the twins? I feel sorry for them if they are separated. I'm going to do my best to raise my grandchildren. I'm going to be busy."
"I'm sure you'll be busy. After all, you'll have to work to survive."
"What?"
Saying that, Ray presented her with a divorce decree with my father-in-law's name on it.
"I'm disappointed in you."
My father-in-law's face appeared on the device by the table.
What's the matter with you? Are you really too busy helping your daughter-in-law and taking care of your grandchildren that you won't come to visit me? But instead of helping her, you were actually bullying her.
Bullying?
As my mother-in-law was about to turn to the screen to argue, a loud sound with her voice played in the room, which was from the time that she had taken the ring from me. Ray questioned her.
This is your voice, isn't it?
I don't know.
Give me the ring. I know you have it.
I don't know anything about a ring.
Just give me the ring. I've been monitoring you for the last hour, and I know you have it because of the GPS.
GPS? You've been monitoring me for a while?
My mother-in-law put her shaking hands in the bag and took out the ring she had taken from me.
I know you thought this was a gift from me, but it's not from me. It's from Dad.
Your father gave her the ring?
Yeah, it's a prototype for the company. It's called a smart ring. If you remove the ring without following the instructions, or if you press a button on the inside, an SOS is sent to the other pair of the ring. Then it records the surrounding sounds and sends them to a server.
My father-in-law spoke through the screen.
I knew that my collapse had put a strain on them, you know. I was worried that something might happen to them, so I gave it to Lori as a gift, even if it was a prototype, just to feel better. Plus, I got an SOS because you took the ring, so I got worried and immediately turned on the camera that was supposed to be used to watch the twins, to see if I could figure out what was going on. So, I watched everything along the way.
Oh, that was different. What if, you know? Even if I did bully my daughter-in-law, you wouldn't have to go all the way to a divorce, would you? Don't you agree?
How dare she say such a thing? Everyone here was thinking.
I told you I've been monitoring you for the past few days. Besides, didn't you look at your phone that time and then disappear right away? You never made it to my dad's place, so I just kept watching. I think any husband in the world would have you divorced you if they saw this picture, don't you?
Ray took out a picture of his mother entering a building with a slightly younger man, arm in arm, in good humor.
This is different! This is different!
Ray continued to show her a series of pictures and she kept denying it. My father-in-law added his words to match.
Who would want a wife who is playing with another man at a time when he's weak and hospitalized? I thought it would be a bad idea to cause a scene at the hospital, so I asked them to do this for me. If you sign it now, I'll cut your alimony bill in half.
Oh, no. No, not right now. I'm not even working.
You have one more week before Dad gets out of the hospital, so you'll have to make it up to him.
Even you, Ray. Lori.
Do you expect me to take the side of someone who has hurt me while I was having a hard time raising the twins? I also despise you with all my heart for betraying Dad. Finally realizing that she had no allies here, my mother-in-law reluctantly signed the divorce papers.
I thought that the twins, Lori, Dad, you, and I could all get along happily. I can't forgive you for ruining that, and I despise you too, so please, don't ever see my family again.
Finally, Ray's scornful look and firm rejection of my mother-in-law seemed to have finally pushed her over the edge, and she gently put down her pen, gathered her things, and left.
I'm really sorry about this. I'll take care of the rest. I'm really sorry.
To my father-in-law, who apologized, I said, "No, I also thought something was wrong, but I pretended not to see it." My father-in-law then hung up the video phone, saying that he was going to contact my mother-in-law to finalize some details. I couldn't bear to watch this happen while he was in such poor health.
Don't push yourself too hard from now on. If you need anything, just let me know right away.
Ray said kindly. Yes, I will. By the way, this prototype is amazing. I knew you made things when I met you at that meetup of people who love new electronics, but I didn't know you could make something like this.
Yeah, that's right. You know that I want to be there for you when we got married and have kids, but that doesn't happen very often, does it?
It's amazing how you've been able to give shape to your feelings.
My dad helped me with it, though.
Finally, the fuss came to an end. Later, when my father-in-law was discharged from the hospital, it became easier for Ray to take time off. He is doing his best to become a dad, even though I'm sometimes temperamental now. In addition, my father-in-law arranged for a variety of postpartum support for me, saying that he wanted me to accept this as a way of apologizing and making me feel a little better, and my health recovered quickly. My health recovered rapidly, but my mother-in-law's life seemed to have fallen into disarray. Apparently, when my father-in-law's divorce was finalized, my mother-in-law went to see her unfaithful partner. The other party was initially very nice to her.
Let's pay the alimony all at once so that we can live happily together. It's for the both of us.
She took those sweet words, borrowed money under her name, and paid the alimony for both of them to my father-in-law in one lump sum. However, her boyfriend soon disappeared from my mother-in-law's life, leaving her with only the debt. When my mother-in-law told my father-in-law about this story, she was chased by debt collectors and asked him to return the alimony she had paid because she was in trouble. Of course, my father-in-law was appalled and refused my mother-in-law's request, and he also asked for a restraining order against her for me, Ray, the twins, and himself for the future. Later, I saw my mother-in-law once in the park. She was sitting on a bench and looked thinner and smaller. And in her line of sight, a couple about my mother-in-law's age and their 2 grandchildren about 2 years old were happily playing ball. I don't really know what my mother-in-law was thinking as she looked at that family. I just know that she left such a future behind.
Lori, let's go.
Yeah, let's have hot pot for dinner tonight.
Well, it is getting colder these days.
I would never betray the happiness of my family. I want to keep this happy family and the twins happy.
My mother-in-law orders me to do housework the day after I gave birth to my daughter. When I told her where I was, she turned pale.
Hey, you! How long do you plan on sleeping?
What? I just gave birth to a child, you know?
So what? As a wife, you should have come back home and taken care of the housework, even on the day you gave birth.
My mother-in-law said such unreasonable things. There is no need to show mercy to someone like her.
Anyway, where are you now?
I told my mother-in-law where I was at the moment. And my mother-in-law started to get flustered, even over the phone.
Why? Why is that?
My name is Emma. I'm a 30-year-old company employee. I've been married to my husband Greg for 3 years. We met through work. Greg used to be my supervisor at the company where I started working after graduating from college. And when I joined the company, Greg was assigned as my mentor.
You're doing well, Emma. But don't let your guard down.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your guidance. My husband was generally reserved and had a strict demeanor. So, I always felt a bit nervous when working with him. But despite being strict, he gave me precise advice. And working with him was a great learning experience. That's why I had a lot of respect for him. And since my husband rarely praised others, I felt genuinely happy whenever he did. Our relationship started to grow closer during the company's Christmas party. I wasn't good at large gatherings like these parties, so I always made sure not to attend the after party. And that year, there was a scheduled after party, but my husband declined to join, saying he had to visit his parents. Both I and others genuinely believed that my husband would visit his parents. As usual, I made up a random excuse to decline the after party and decided to go to a cafe by myself. After joining the party with everyone for a while, I wanted some alone time to relax and calm myself. So I went to a cafe that was open late and sat down to have a coffee. Then, the cafe door opened, and it was my husband who walked in. It's Greg. Didn't he say he had something to do at his parents'? I thought that as I watched him from a distant table. The interior of the cafe was dimly lit with mostly indirect lighting, so it seemed like he hadn't noticed me. After he placed his order, a beautiful parfait arrived at his table. Huh? A parfait? I couldn't believe my eyes. Seeing him, who was usually so quiet, eating a parfait with such a happy expression, made me wonder. He told his subordinates he had something to do. And here he was, alone in a cafe, enjoying a parfait, and looking so content. I couldn't help but feel so intrigued by him after witnessing that. I was slightly happy to see an unexpected side of my reserved and strict boss. Since then, I became very curious about him, and I started making advances towards him. At first, even when I invited him for drinks, he didn't accept. But knowing that he liked sweets, I invited him to a dessert bar known for its delicious treats. With that strategy, he finally agreed to go with me, and I succeeded in meeting him after work, just the two of us. Even though work had ended, he still talked to me as my boss. But when the dessert he ordered was placed in front of him, his face softened with delight. Seeing Greg like that, I couldn't help but smile. Noticing my expression, he laughed slightly, looking a bit embarrassed.
By the way, why did you invite me to this kind of place? I don't think I mentioned that I like sweets.
Well, the truth is, I saw it. Saying that, I told Greg about what happened at the previous Christmas party. Then he blushed and said,
Seriously? You saw that? That's embarrassing.
It's okay. I haven't told anyone at work, of course. But honestly, I felt a sense of familiarity with you, Greg. I always thought you were a perfect person.
Nah, I'm far from perfect. I'm always struggling.
Huh, is that so? As I continued talking with him, my impression of him kept changing. I realized that you have to talk and get to know the other person deeply. And the more I get to know him, the more I became interested in him. If you're up for it, let's go eat delicious desserts together again. Greg, please also tell me about good places you eat. Once I realized my feelings, I actively started pursuing him. After a while, he asked me out on a date.
There's a cafe I often go to that serves delicious pancakes. How about going there on our day off?
Yes. Inside, I was doing a little victory dance as I accepted his invitation. Yes, I'd love to. For the first time, I went to a cafe with him on a day off, not after work. There, I saw him in casual clothes, and I thought he looked even more attractive. From then on, we started going on regular dates, and our distance kept getting closer. And finally, he formally asked me to be in a relationship, and we started dating. I knew he cared a lot about me, so I was happy. After about 2 years of dating, he proposed to me. Of course, I accepted right then and there. Once the decision was made, we quickly had our families meet. And 6 months after the proposal, we had our wedding. My colleagues were surprised to hear that Greg and I were getting married. Apparently, no one had thought we were dating. But everyone was very happy for us and gave us their blessings. And so, our married life began. Living together with my beloved husband made me incredibly happy. Since it wouldn't be appropriate for my husband and me to be in the same department at work, I requested a transfer to a different department. It was challenging to learn the job in the new department, but I enjoyed the work there and had a fulfilling time. My husband wasn't as reserved in private as he was at work. He talked to me a lot, and we even goofed around together. Both my married life and my work were fulfilling. And I tasted the level of happiness I had never experienced before. However, amidst this happy life, I suddenly encountered a source of worry. It was my mother-in-law.
Oh, you're here too?
Yes. Hi. Whenever we visited my in-law's house, my mother-in-law looked at me with a very stern gaze. But her sternness was different from the way my husband looked at me when we worked together. My mother-in-law's gaze had malicious intent.
Emma, you were so slow in your work. Can't you make the food faster? Greg married someone like you, who can't do household chores. He's so pitiful.
My mother-in-law attacked me fiercely if she found even the slightest thing I couldn't do. Why did I have to be blamed and scolded so unfairly? Every time I visited my in-laws, I would be upset and in a bad mood from being unjustly scolded by my mother-in-law. And as these days continued, it became quite mentally challenging for a while. My husband must have sensed it.
Emma, is my mom saying something to you?
My husband suddenly said that, and I was surprised. And he told me that I didn't have to come with him to my in-laws' house if I didn't want to. Thanks to that, I only needed to show up at my in-laws' house for important family events, and I felt much relieved. I was truly grateful that my husband cared for me in that way. I genuinely felt that I had married an amazing person. And in the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed since we got married. In the midst of it, I discovered that I was pregnant. When I told my husband, he was overjoyed.
Really? Emma, thank you.
My husband loves children, actually. He was incredibly happy when he found out we are having our own child.
From now on, I will work harder than ever. Emma, prioritize resting and taking care of your body.
Okay, I got it. I'm looking forward to it. My husband takes great care of me. And it made me truly realize that I was indeed pregnant. But now, after a long time, my troublesome mother-in-law started getting deeply involved.
Since it's your first childbirth, you must want some advice, right? I'll support you, so tell me anything you need.
My mother-in-law seems happy. But honestly, I found it annoying how she forcefully tried to get involved. I expressed my gratitude while brushing it off casually, but since then, my mother-in-law started coming to our house quite often.
Emma, I'm here.
Huh? What happened all of a sudden?
What do you mean? It's for the sake of your baby, of course. I need to check if you're having proper meals. Also, I thought I should see how much you've improved with the household chores in these 2 years.
My mother-in-law said with a mean smile. She seemed pleased to be able to pick on me after such a long time. I became very anxious. If this situation continued, it might have a negative impact on my unborn baby.
Huh? Mom was here?
Yeah, it was sudden, so I was surprised.
I see. You don't have to let her in if it's too much.
Okay, thanks, honey. My husband said that to me. So from then on, I didn't let my mother-in-law into the house and pretended not to be home. And then, my mother-in-law, "Where on earth are you going? You should come back immediately. It's affecting the baby." She called me numerous times and sent messages like that. I couldn't block her calls since that wouldn't be right. But I was fed up with the content notifications on my buzzing phone. This created a vicious cycle where I became stressed and concerned about her messages. I pondered on what to do for a while, and reluctantly, I discussed it with my husband. Even he was unsure about what to do. I see. I'll tell Mom not to contact you too often. Saying that, my husband contacted my mother-in-law. Mom, you don't have to visit our house too frequently. Huh? But what if something happens to Emma? It's okay. We've made sure we can reach out to each other immediately if anything happens. It's actually more stressful for Emma when you come over frequently or contact her like a maniac. Is that what Emma is saying? No, it's not like that, but we just want a safe delivery for the baby. Without any stress, you know? So you were saying I'm the cause of her stress? My. What a terrible daughter-in-law. Well, I've understood her opinion. Mom, I think you are interpreting things strangely. My husband had put the call on speaker, so I heard every word my mother-in-law said. Her words and actions were just imposition, disguised as goodwill. And even after that, my mother-in-law continued to call me multiple times and ring the doorbell. And when she realized I wasn't answering, she contacted me even more. Even my husband was exasperated at this point. I was in the final month of pregnancy, and it was a crucial time for me and the baby. So, I didn't want to be disturbed by mother-in-law because of something like this. That's when my husband had a suggestion, and we made a decision. Greg, are you sure about this? Yeah. I'm tired of being bothered by my mom anymore. Let's make sure we can spend time peacefully, okay? Yeah, thank you. I was really glad that my husband was on my side. After that, I went to the hospital when I went into labor on my due date. And our baby was born safely. A healthy baby girl. My husband and father-in-law were so delighted with the birth of our adorable daughter. But my mother-in-law... So, it's not a boy after all. She made an unthinkable remark. I was really angry because I had gone through the pain of childbirth. And she suddenly said something like that. My husband and father-in-law were also shocked. My husband spoke to my mother-in-law. Mom, if you were going to say things like that, please leave. Greg? Why? Right now, I want to be with only the people who are genuinely happy about this child's birth. Of course, I'm happy too. Then you wouldn't make remarks like earlier, would you? I just thought that having a successor might be necessary. That's all. What are you saying? I'm not some kind of a business owner, you know. Who needs a successor? My father-in-law also sided with me, and I was grateful for that. Perhaps feeling at a disadvantage, my mother-in-law apologized. I'm sorry. I take back what I said earlier. She apologized like that. Afterward, my mother-in-law became quiet, but she glared at me the whole time. 2 days later, I received a message from my mother-in-law. Hello? What's the matter? How long do you plan on sleeping? You're such a lazy person. Excuse me? You are too sloppy. I can't believe it. I just gave birth to my daughter, you know. So what? What's your point? As a wife, you should have come back home on the day of giving birth and done the household chores. Just because Greg spoils you doesn't mean I'll forgive you. If you can't bear a boy, then at least handle other matters properly. My mother-in-law continued to say unreasonable things like that. There's no need for me to show mercy to someone like her. No matter what you say, I won't obey.
What? Come back immediately. I will beat the rotten mentality out of you.
My mother-in-law got angry and said that.
Even if you say that...
I'm no longer at the hospital.
Huh? Then where are you right now?
So I honestly told my mother-in-law where I was. I'm currently at my parents' house. And Greg is with me too.
Greg too?
Yes. We've decided to live here. We've made the decision to start our life in my hometown. My mother-in-law was clearly shaken by the sad news over the phone. Yes, my husband and I chose to live in my hometown, which is in a rural area. My husband arranged to work remotely through his company, allowing us to live anywhere. So, after giving birth, my husband and I decided to start our life in my hometown. It's a place full of nature, which is great for raising a child.
Why? Why would you do that?
My mother-in-law was deeply disturbed.
Don't you understand?
Please reflect on your own doings.
This is all your idea, isn't it? Dawn involved Greg in this.
Actually, it was Greg who suggested it to me. And your husband also said he couldn't take it anymore.
What are you talking about?
It seems like he's decided to live separately soon, and he's already rented a new place. Huh. I guess you haven't heard about it yet. Well, instead of tormenting me, maybe you should be more concerned about yourself. Anyway, we're done with any involvement with you. We're cutting ties. I think your husband will inform you directly as well.
No way.
My mother-in-law was at the loss for words due to the shock. I didn't stop the momentum and delivered my final farewell. Well then, good luck and goodbye. Afterward, my husband and father-in-law followed through with their plan and directly informed my mother-in-law about the separation. She was shocked and bowed her head in disappointment. From then on, my mother-in-law sent me numerous messages apologizing. Perhaps she thought that if I forgive her, everything would go back to normal. However, at this point, I have no intention of forgiving her. Of course, I have no plans to let her meet our daughter for the time being. And my husband agrees with this decision. Both my husband and father-in-law are ignoring any communication from my mother-in-law. I heard that she is living a lonely and desolate life in her spacious home where no one comes to visit. It seems that she is mentally struggling. I can understand to some extent the excessive affection she has for her son, especially now that we have a daughter. However, using that love as an excuse to belittle to hurt others is wrong. I don't know how or when my mother-in-law's personality became so twisted, but I hope she reflects on her actions. Sometimes I can't help but think that if she hadn't bullied me, she wouldn't be all alone now. Although I went through a tough time with her, what made me the happiest was that my husband was on my side from the beginning. I realized once again that I can build a truly happy family with him. In that sense, I am grateful to my mother-in-law for raising my husband. Moreover, it's a waste of life to hold on to grudges. Although I can't imagine it right now, I hope that someday, somewhere, I can have a positive reunion with my mother-in-law. I want to live happy, nurturing a loving relationship with my husband, and watching our daughter grow.